What's crack-a-lackin'? Is anyone else watching the newest season of Love is Blind? Love is Blind Season 9 is a recession indicator. I will not comment further. Hello, and welcome to the part of the video that comes after the intro. I thought I was a lit fic baddie this whole time, but I've been reading some, contemporary fiction lately, and these all kind of slapped, so... The first book I've got is Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid. I finished this in February. This was published in 2019 and seems to take place in a 2015 to 2019 era. Our main character is Amira. She is this 25-year-old who doesn't really know herself yet and doesn't really know what she wants to do with herself and kind of feels down in the dumps about it, but she is babysitting as her main gig. Amira gets a call one night while she's out at a party, out at the club with her best friend for her birthday. She gets a call from a woman she babysits for, Alex, and is asking her to come babysit last minute for some emergency. I don't remember. But Amira leaves the club. So Amira is at the grocery store with her best friend and with the little 3-year-old kid, Briar. And they start getting harassed by Karens, this Karen at the store, and then she brings in the manager, and then eventually they bring in a policeman or whatever or a security guard, I don't know, because Amira is black and her friend is black, and they're wearing these party outfits or whatever, and Briar is this little white girl, and she doesn't believe that she's actually her babysitter, but Amira is calling herself her nanny. So while this whole confrontation and altercation is going on, there's this white guy next door filming the whole thing on his phone. After the father of Briar comes to the grocery store and gets involved and flips out about the whole thing, they all leave, and this guy, Kelly, approaches Amira and is hey, that whole thing was unacceptable. I have the footage. I want to send it to you. You could sue. You could make millions or whatever, or maybe we could just release it online and she's no, delete the video, send it to me, delete it, and don't ever talk to me again. Now there's a whole weird kind of relationship triangle going on, because this book is kind of Kelly is really interested in Amira and trying to romance her, and Alex and Kelly used to date in high school, and they had this mysterious falling out that we kind of discover as the book goes on. So they hate each other and they have horrible perspectives of each other, and Amira is getting caught up in all of this nonsense that she wants nothing to do with. I ended up reading this book 4 stars. I loved the drama between all of the characters that's kind of happening underneath everything. The main theme is these two different types of white savior figures coming into her life. There's Alex. Alex kind of wants to hire Amira full time because of the discrimination that she faced when she was with her daughter Briar. She wants to feel good about doing something good for Amira, and she kind of becomes obsessed with Amira. She sneaks and checks her phone to see what music she's been listening to and see what guys she's been talking to, because she thinks Amira is so cool. And then on the other side of that coin is Kelly, her kind of love interest throughout the book, who is Alex's ex, but they don't know about each other, and And Kelly is the one who filmed this altercation with Amira and like really wanted her to like sue, and Amira just wasn't about that. So then Kelly like starts to try to like date her. She notices how he like only seems to hang out with like black people. She kind of brushes past it, but Alex and Kelly, these two exes that are both like kind of obsessed with Amira, are both trying to like constantly convince Amira that the other person is a horrible person and that the way they move out about the world with black people is problematic. The way that Amira is just like so over it, like start to finish, never is she convinced by these people that she should be concerned about what they think about the situation. The writing and the voice was all like really fast paced and funny. I feel like I got through this really fast. That was Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid. The next book that I read was Blob by Maggie Sue. This is published 2025 and yeah, I think takes place between like 2022 and 2025 for sure. This is the only like book that I would judge contemporary fiction with magical realism in it that's on this review. Our main character, Vi, she's like a young adult who kind of considers herself to be a huge screw up, and like she always feels like nobody likes her and everyone's disappointed in her. And she's been having a hard time because she got broken up with by her long-term boyfriend, and she's really just been like kind of wallowing in her life for the last few months or so. She learns that her coworker Rachel has also been dumped recently and is having a hard time, and so she finally like tentatively agrees to go out with her. So while she's like procrastinating going into this drag show or whatever, and she sees this blob on the ground. It's not quite like the cover. It's it's not translucent. I mean, I think it's like a little bit translucent, but it's kind of like a pale beige color. And it has like a little face. I feel like it kind of looks like a ditto, I guess. It just has like two silly eyes and like a big mouth. And she ends up deciding to take this blob home. So she takes it home and, you know, over time kind of discovers that the blob takes instructions really well and can kind of shapeshift and morph itself. She ends up like trying to morph it into the perfect boyfriend that she can like take to home to meet her parents. She feels pretty challenged when people start liking the blob more than they like her, or at least that's how she perceives it. I rated this book 4 stars. It was very funny. Vi is absolutely just miserable, like just one of those people who like self-sabotages and like just really feels like that they can't do anything right. And then she has this like coworker who's kind of basically her best friend, Rachel, who she like initially sees as somebody who has it always like together, and then like throughout the story is realizing that like that's not the case for anyone, like especially their age. And then the blob, it has its own characterization. He ends up being named Bob, and he is really liked by people naturally, and has to kind of like start learning how to navigate the world with training wheels on like really quickly. Vi has kind of like another romance with a different character later in the book that I thought was pretty sweet. There's like lots of themes of like self-discovery and identity. Vi is kind of like, as the book goes on, like recreating her last relationship that like ended up going poorly. She ends up recreating that sort of same thing with Bob in a much more literal way. And through that is like able to like work past what happened in her previous relationship, and that like maybe her boyfriend hadn't been so perfect, and like she isn't like a complete failure for having lost that relationship. Yeah, I liked how Vi develops throughout the story, because at the beginning she's just absolutely insufferable. And as the story goes on, she's like learning to like accept things and not feel so like constantly defensive against the world all the time. That was Blob, a love story. The next book that I read was Sleep by Honor Jones. And this was also a 2025 publish. And oh boy, was this a doozy. I honestly grabbed this because I really like this cover. This book follows our main character, Margaret. This first portion of the book kind of follows this specific summer as a preteen, and then later, the second half, it follows her as an adult with her own family she has 2 daughters that are hitting those same preteen years. Margaret kind of grows up in this dysfunctional family where she has this really strained relationship with her mother, Elizabeth. This kind of strained relationship with her mother leads to the fact that this summer, when some horrible things happen to Margaret. She is molested by a person close to her, and she ends up not directly disclosing to her mother that this happened because of their already like tenuous kind of toxic relationship dynamic that's going on. So when we see her later in the second half of the book, her and her mother's relationship is honestly a lot better. Margaret kind of constantly is kind of standing up for herself and like trying to set boundaries, but really wants Elizabeth, her mom, to be a part of her daughter's lives. You know, she wants her children to have a grandma. She ends up going back to the family home for like a few weeks over the summer, and you know, her mom's having like a hard time health-wise and stuff. But this person who molested her as a child is there as well. It was so stressful and so awful to read about. This is a spoiler, but I think this would honestly make this a much better read. Nothing happens to her children throughout the story. There's no like repetition of the past with that. The story really just focuses on our main character, Margaret, and her really struggling later on with this thing that happened with her because she really never addressed it. She's in a pretty good place in her life considering, and like emotionally she's overcome a lot and like dealt with it in some ways, but it was just never dealt with directly enough. It's really just like following her personal emotional journey along as this like transgression happens, and then she is recovering from it later and having these like anxieties about her own children. She's also like navigating a new relationship and like feeling a lot of anxiety about like opening her own daughters up to the larger world outside their own family. I ended up rating this book 4 stars. I'm gonna be honest, I would not have read this book if I had understood what the content of it was going to be like. In the description, like in the marketing, it doesn't say specifically that this is like all framed around like a sexual assault that happened. It says that there was like a transgression by somebody, but the like quote unquote transgression, I don't feel like it's a problem to disclose the nature of the transgression. Like, let me just read you this excerpt from the description. Warm and generous, unflinchingly human, and ultimately joyful and empowering. Warm and generous, absolutely not. Unflinchingly human, okay. And ultimately joyful and empowering. I just don't really agree with that. I don't exactly know what warm and generous means, but the idea that they're trying to get across is that this is like a more of an uplifting, inspirational book than I feel like it was. I enjoyed going through the journey with Margaret, like to get to a different place in her life, but it really wasn't a full character arc, in my opinion. Like, we really just see a little slice of it, and I liked that, but it didn't leave me with this like uplifted, like inspirational, empowered, absolutely not. I thought the writing was really good. I thought it was really like emotional and impactful. And that is Sleep by Honor Jones. The next book that I read was Apples Never Fall by Liane Moriarty. I loved this book. This was published in 2021. It takes place like right in 2018, 2019. This is by the same author that wrote Big Little Lies, which I haven't read, but it's like when people talk about like this is like divorced woman thriller. By divorced woman, for divorced women, about divorced women. This book all follows one family. There's the two parents and they're still married with all adult children. The father of the family, his name is Stan. He's kind of like classic, quiet, competitive boomer type of grandpa, father figure. His wife, the mom of the family, is Joy, and she is like the bubbly one. She's really like social and enthusiastic about things, and together they run this like tennis training school, and all their kids, they have played tennis as well. The oldest daughter is named Amy. She kind of, her role in the family is to kind of be the problem child. Like, everybody's always worried about Amy. She has these mental health problems and her parents have like a really hard time dealing with it. She can't like really hold a job. She's always moving. She doesn't have consistent relationships, that kind of stuff. But she's also kind of like the ringleader as well. The second child is Logan. He's the oldest son. He's kind of a quiet type. He just likes to do his thing. He like comes and helps his parents like manage their property and fix things, and he works as like he's like a professor at a community college, and he teaches business communications. My siblings are like, what does he know about communication? Troy, the next son, he kind of feels challenged by Logan's like more classic masculinity. He's like a entrepreneur, businessman, mogul. He seemingly like makes a lot of money and likes to flex it. He's the mama's boy of the family as well. And the youngest daughter, Brooke, she's kind of the daddy's girl, and she's a physical trainer, like helps people recover from injuries and that kind of stuff. Physical therapist, that's what it's called. So the story starts out when Joy has gone missing, and the police are investigating, and they think that it's Stan. He's like, there's like kind of a lot of evidence indicating that it's her husband, Stan, who might have done something to her. And all the children are dealing with this. They obviously don't want it to be their dad, but the evidence is pointing to it, and he's been like, they've been having a rough patch in their marriage and this and that. One part of the story focuses on this current timeline where Joy has gone missing, and the adult children are kind of going around town talking about it really out in the open. It's like, it's very funny in the way that they're kind of like this rich like asshole prep family, and so they don't really care about people hearing their business, or they like don't really think about it or whatever. They're not exactly considerate people. So they talk about this like possible murder, like missing mom situation, like out in the open, and you're like following the people that are like in town around them, being like listening in and eavesdropping on these conversations. It's very funny. The other timeline is we're following this situation that happened like a year or two ago, where this young woman, Savannah, like crashed and stayed at Stan and Joy's house for I think like several months, and all this like family drama ensues. I ended up rating this book 4 stars. I thought it was so funny. It's like it is not marketed as satirical, but to me it really felt like a satirical response to like the thriller genre, which like Liane Moriarty, I know, I'm pretty sure like Big Little Lies is like a proper thriller, but I don't know, because this was, to me, this was like very much mocking of the thriller genre. It plays on a lot of the tropes, even following the police officers in their investigation of this missing person, and they're ridiculously unhelpful, but also they are all just adamant about who the killer is right from the start, and it's just confirmation bias after confirmation bias, you know. The only reason I didn't rate this 5 stars is because the like very last chapter, or like the epilogue or whatever, was a COVID chapter, and it was nonsensical. It didn't need to be there. It was clearly like just there because I'm sure while Liane was writing this, like, COVID started or whatever, and so she included that in the story, but it was not necessary, and it like really took me out. I didn't want to hear it. I don't like hearing about COVID in my books. I'm sorry. What did this have to do with anything? This book is very much centered around tennis. Joy and Stan are really into tennis, and all the kids are really into tennis because they want to be accepted by their parents. There's just like this constant tennis talk. Everyone's always playing tennis. The parents are always like disappointed in their children for like not playing more and not being competitive and not having been as successful as like the dad Stan had wanted. I'm not into sports at all and not into tennis at all, but like the way she did this was awesome. I think it added like this weird like extra layer of like texture and reality that I thought was really fun. They're always referencing these like specific games that happened and like the events of it. The way that they use like the tennis and the stories about specific tennis matches to tell the story is really funny. That is Apples Never Fall by Liane Moriarty. The last book that I read is perhaps the craziest book. This is Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. Sky Daddy was also published in 2025. And I read this book because Frankie's Shelf had done like a little spoiler-free intro to the review and been like, stop. If you want to read this book, please don't watch this and go read it. So that's what I did. This is this is maybe a little bit more of a lit fic just because it gets in the kind of a weird realm. But this is a contemporary fiction. It takes place like, 2022 to 2025. This follows our main character, Linda. And she is a woman who has a romantic and sexual obsession with airplanes. She basically like lives her whole life centered around this one delusion that she kind of believes airplanes are sentient, and that like the ultimate thing that she can get from an airplane is that it declares its love to her and marries her. And to marry her, it would crash itself. She like believes that she has this like destiny to die in an airplane crash because that's what she wants in life. And so she moves about life in a very specific way centered around this fact. She like has the cheapest rent that she can get and saves all her money so that she can buy airline tickets. She doesn't want to be, or she at least thinks to herself all the time that she wants to try her best to not connect with other people because she doesn't want them to be hurt when she dies in the airplane crash. But despite this want to not be connected to anybody, she really can't help herself. So she starts becoming pretty good friends with this girl that she works with, Karina. And she like sees Karina as this kind of like popular girl who has it so much more together than her. Linda has like, she kind of is like very strange in social interactions, despite like understanding them pretty well. She just kind of can't help herself from talking about airplanes and stuff. But Karina likes her, and she invites her to a get-together that she and her friends are having. where they all get together and create vision boards, and then they share their vision boards. Linda is like, this is an amazing opportunity. I can get the universe to bend at my whim to get me in an airplane crash. She doesn't want to come right out of the gates in front of these people because she knows she's going to have to share her vision board. So she centers it around like pilots. She's like, well, you know, I can compromise. I can marry a pilot and then I can go on like all these flights for really cheap and it'll be like really easy for me to access. So she's really excited about this vision board thing and gets really invested in it throughout the story. As the plot goes on, she is always thinking that the things that are happening are like because of her vision board and that she's like been properly manifesting it. That's dubious at best. Eventually she like accidentally manifests like this guy who starts like taking plane trips with her, and they kind of enter into this strange romance where neither of them really wants to be with the other person but they're both kind of taking advantage of the situation, and things get crazy. I rated this book 5 stars. This is like a 6-star read for me. Like the 5 stars that are absolutely perfect 5 stars. Like they're not a 4.75. They're 5.5. Linda is so funny and so like relatable in the weirdest ways. She's like such an individual, and yet the problems that she has are like so similar to problems that like a lot of people have. She just like really desires connection with other people, but is preventing herself from doing that. There's like themes about like fate and free will and magical thinking and the downfalls of being like as pragmatic with your life as Linda is, as like focused on one singular thing that you're hoping for and that you're aiming towards. I could do a much longer full review on Sky Daddy, to be honest, so if anyone's interested. So that is all the contemporary fiction that I've been reading lately. I really enjoyed all of these. This might be like all positive reviews, everything 4 and 5 stars. Literally the only reason I didn't rate Apples Never Fall 5 stars is because of the COVID chapter. If you're not as bothered by that, you should definitely check it out. Just don't go in thinking that it's going to be a thriller, okay? Thanks for watching. Bye!